Hi there, I'm doing a Load 514 challenge page today. Our prompt has to do with the music that we've listened to in our lives. So I have quite a bit of journaling that I want to include, and I didn't really have anything musical. I could cut out some music notes, and I think I have one stamp that has music print on it, but I don't have a lot with that. So what I decided to do was to create a background, and I'm going to use some printed music sheets from books. None of this has to do with anything that I listen to, but all I'm really looking for is the notes. That's what I want to come through. I'm going to be doing this with some Mod Podge and things on a background. I have a bunch of stencils out here we'll be using in just a little bit, and I'm going to kind of go with a 70s look since that's the decade that I'm most capturing my memories from. So I have a stencil I cut with the silhouette and some Crafters Workshop stencils, and I think this is a Kelly Perky stencil from Simon Says Stamps. I got a bunch of inks. And the only stamps that I had that kind of looked 70s to me were these flowers. So I think we're going to be doing something with that because I have some journaling here, and I have this really long title that I'll be putting in, but the background is what I want to concentrate on to begin with. My background paper is cardstock, and there's nothing special about this green. In fact, it's going to get all covered up. I just picked it because I had a lot of this color and I don't use it very much, so I thought it would be a good base to kind of get rid of. But I'll be doing some misting here and then adding these papers with Mod Podge over the green. Now when you're working with Mod Podge and you've got mists that are water soluble, you can't put Mod Podge down and then put the mist over it, because when you add any more Mod Podge, it's just going to smear all over the place. But you can mist paper, especially really absorbent papers like these old hymnals and things. You can mist those before you do the Mod Podge layer, and that's what I want to do. So let's see how many of these that I need. I'm not going to need quite nearly this many whole sheets. So, and I don't know how I'm going to arrange them. I'm just kind of getting an idea of how many of those that I want to do. I think maybe, well, looks like I'm going to go ahead and do all as far as misting, and then we'll tear off and use them however we like. Adding the first mask and some Dilutions mists to get these nice bold colors for the 70s. I like to take what's left on the stencil and then press another paper on top of it, and that will keep my colors kind of consistent as I go across the page. And I may add some other colors to some of these. This one has a lot of space that's going to get misted over on the stencil, so the inverse of this one is actually going to probably have the better design than this original misting. Yeah, that's really showing up a lot of that pretty yellow and orange there. All right, and I did one of them with that stripes stencil, and it didn't come out that great, so I'm adding a little bit more of yellow over the top of it, and then I'll soak up a little bit of this extra color, just a touch, to add some yellow to one of those that has the purple colors in it. So now you can see all of the different ones that I have to work with, and I'll be tearing some of the edges off of these and putting them on the background paper. I work with Mod Podge matte. You could use glossy. I like the matte. I like the way it looks. I like the way it spreads. There are more expensive mediums to use here, but I like plain old Mod Podge. I was kind of late coming to the world of Mod Podge, but once I got into it, I just really like it for my crafting. This is my favorite piece, so I'm going to use all of it. Not quite in the middle, because in the middle it's going to be my journaling, so it would get covered up. So I'm going to put it sort of over towards the left, put a coat of Mod Podge on the back, and then also on the paper. This is the same kind of process that I use when I'm doing canvases. And I've gotten to where I use book paper just about all the time for my backgrounds on canvases. I really like it. Now the Dilutions mist soaks in good, but not quite as good as the Studio Calico, and it depends on the paper too. So this is running off a little bit. For my purposes, that's going to be fine. Mists are not water soluble. The only reason that they kind of work with the papers is these, especially these older book papers, are very porous and they will tend to soak a lot of the mist in. So I'm just adding each of these and kind of folding around to the back. I could just trim them off, I wouldn't have to do that. But it's thin paper, so it folds really nicely and it helps the sturdiness of the page. I'm turning some of these sideways so that it's not all the music notes are going right side up. Because again, I don't really want you to read the words. It's the words for these songs is not where I'm going. That's not really the story here. It's just the idea that it's music. Kind of spread the colors out a little bit, and the patterns some too. Get this one over on the far left, and then I'll have to fill in something there in the middle. Then up here at the top, I've just added one over there on the left, and I took some more of that one that I had at the bottom that I tore off and put it at the top. And now I've got one I'm going to use to kind of do the fill-ins. And usually what I do with this after the colors is dried is this would be the step where I would add some paint, and I was planning to do that on this one, but I really liked how this came out without paint. So I'm not going to add any paint to it. I'm just taking something here to kind of finish off that far left edge. The challenge I'm going to have though is that since I had planned to put paint on this, I did end up with a little bit of green up there in the upper left hand corner that didn't get covered. So I could add a little bit of ink or paint and see where my journaling is going to go. What I decided to do after this is dry is actually trim it down a little bit so I can put it on a black background. Since I had started with the full 12 by 12 sheet, I'm just going to take a 1/2 inch off of 2 sides, and then I'll center it to have a 1/4 inch border. It means that I'll have some sides that won't have paper wrapped around them, but I don't think you'll ever really see that. And I cut the middle out of that black because I was running low on black cardstock and I needed some to map my journaling. And because this warps a little bit once it dries, I am using some using hot glue to hold it to the black paper. And that's working really well. All right, kind of getting an idea of how things are going to come together there with the title across the middle. And it's going to say, when country wasn't cool. And I made cool by doing a C and an L, and then for the 2 O's, I'm using some glasses. I got these from the Silhouette store. And I'm wondering if the glasses need something filled in the middle, like some pink, like the letters. And I'm not real crazy about that. It's too much of that fuchsia pink. They need something in there. The word country is going to have some vellum behind it, so I realized that I could put vellum in the glasses too, and that would look really good. Now I want to cut some flowers for this, and I have several different cardstocks. And I cut these with the Silhouette. I originally cut just one of each 3 of the colors, but I felt like they needed a little more depth to them, so I'm adding a second layer just slightly larger than the first, and I'm going to kind of stack those and then put something in the middle. I've looked at buttons, but I'm not thrilled with buttons. I have these wood pieces. There are great flowers in there, but there weren't enough of them. But there are some wood circles. They're not perfectly round. They're kind of pinked edges. And I don't have 3 small ones. That bigger one is awfully big. So I think I'll do a flower instead. Okay, so what I did for the glasses is just filled in the back with some vellum, and then adding a little Tombow adhesive to hold this in place. And that'll make the word cool. Okay. And for my flowers, I thought that they need a little bit more dimension, so I'm just adding some ink to that bottom layer. And I'll stack them and then put the wood piece in the center. And the wood pieces in their natural color look a lot like the music paper does. So I decided not to color them, just to go ahead and use them
the way they are. So here's our finished page, and I'll hold it up to the camera so you can see some close-ups of it. It has a lot of dimension to it in person, and the background really shines a lot more in person. Even though it's the matte Mod Podge, it still has a nice sheen to it. So as we look at a few more close-ups coming up here in the still shots, if you have situations like I do where you don't have any photos or very good photos from the past, I do have a new ebook or PDF called No Photo, No Problem. It's available over on my blog. And it looks at all kinds of different ways, this one being a little bit more out there, but lots of different ways of creating pages working with the photos that you have.